Hey Griddlers, Ruben here with Griddle Recipes, and today we're going to cook a griddle classic, which is fried eggs and sausages. There are a few things better than a perfectly cooked set of fried eggs, and today I'll show you how to cook one on a griddle and pair it up with some delicious sausage patties and some yummy heirloom fried tomatoes. But before we get started, I have to ask you, why did the egg cross the road? Stay tuned till the end to find out why. And just a reminder to please take a second to like and subscribe if you have not already, and you'll be notified whenever I make new videos. And this really helps the channel grow. Okay, so let's get started by preheating our griddles to medium heat. There may be slight temperature variations, but medium heat should work for almost everyone. And on my Weber 28 inch griddle, medium heat seems to work best. Now, it should take about 10 minutes for the griddle to heat up to temperature. But depending on the ambient temperature outside, this may be a minute or so more or less. So you can judge it accordingly depending on how fast your griddle is taking to warm up. But about 10 minutes should be how long it'll take to warm up. Okay, so now that the griddle is up to temperature, let's get started by placing our sausage patties on the griddle, as these will take the longest time to cook. So for our sausage patties, we're making these with just standard store-bought hot Italian sausage mix and forming them into about 2 ounce pieces. Okay, when you're placing them on the griddle, just make sure that they're evenly spaced apart. This ensures that they have enough room to cook and they're not overcrowding, and it prevents them from steaming and get allows them to brown nicely. Now let the sausage patties cook undisturbed for a few minutes on one side until it develops a golden brown crust. Avoid pressing them down too much, as this will cause the flavor juices to escape and can make your patties drier. Okay, so while the sausage patties cook, let's get started on our eggs. So we're making three different types of eggs today. We'll be starting with over easy and sunny setup, and then we'll be also cooking a cheese omelet. So let's get started by cracking our eggs on the other side of our griddle. Okay, so for the eggs, I'm making four eggs to start. Two of them are going to be sunny side up, and two of them are going to be over easy. For the eggs sunny side up, all you have to do is wait until the eggs are firmed up, but the yolk is still soft. What a little trick that I do is I break the whites of the eggs to allow them to spread out on the pan and cook. Otherwise, you're left with this one big collection of egg whites near the yolk, and it doesn't cook evenly. So if you can puncture the membrane of the egg whites and spread them, it allow the eggs to cook well. Okay. Once you've seen that your eggs are started to firm up for sunny side up eggs, you can take them out. But for the over easy eggs, as long as the yolk is still runny, you can flip the eggs over and cook them briefly. But just make sure that the yolks don't cook and they're still runny. Okay. Flip the patties over once the bottom side is nicely browned, and be gentle when flipping to avoid spilling hot grease on yourself. You can continue to cook the patties on the other side until they're fully cooked through. This happens when they reach an internal temperature of 160 degrees. To check if the sausage patties are cooked through, you can use a meat thermometer, obviously, or you can also cut the patties in half and ensure that there's no pinkness in the center. Just a heads up that while I'm showing you how to cook these things sequentially, you can prepare the ingredients at the same time. But if you're new to grilling, take your time and you can do things in a step by step way just so you're not overwhelmed. Okay, so now let's move on to scrambled eggs. First, start by cracking some eggs into a bowl. So here I'm using two. And once we crack them, we can whisk them until well beaten. Now pour these eggs directly onto your hot griddle with a little bit of vegetable oil, and once they have set, you can put a couple of slices of cheese directly on top of your omelet. I like putting cheese inside my omelet because it's a really nice surprise when you cut into the omelet, and it melts whenever you fold the omelet over. So that's what I'm going to do. I've put some cheese inside this omelet. We're going to fold it over and we're going to let it cook. Okay, so now the sausages and the omelet should be done. So let's go ahead and take these off the griddle. And the last thing that we're going to cook are the fried tomatoes. But before we get started with the fried tomatoes, I just want to give you a heads up that although you often see eggs paired with some standard protein like sausage, bacon, or ham, it also works well with some non traditional proteins such as smoked salmon or even something more adventurous such as some delicious longanisa, which is a type of Filipino pork. If you have any other interesting pairings with your eggs that you like to have, please let me know down in the comments. Okay, now let's get started with the tomatoes. So typically, green tomatoes are used to make fried tomatoes. These green tomatoes, they're unripe tomatoes that have a firm texture but have a tangy yet slightly sour flavor. But if you're like me and you can get green tomatoes, you can also use regular red ripe tomatoes. Or if you want to be fancy, you can even use heirloom tomatoes, which are tomatoes which come in a very unique set of colors and flavors, and they're really delicious. Okay, but the main thing is that the tomatoes they have to be firm, and this will ensure that they hold their shape and won't turn to mush when frying. So the tomatoes will naturally soften as you fry them. If you start off with soft tomatoes, they'll really turn into tomato chutney when you're frying them. So you need to start off with firm tomatoes so they hold their shape while you fry them. Now, when you're cutting the tomatoes into slices, try to cut them into about one half to a quarter inch slices. If you like to still have a bit of crunch in your tomatoes, then cut them a bit thicker because if you cut them thin, they'll cook faster and they'll get softer faster. Okay, so once you're done cutting your tomatoes, you can add them to the griddle at about medium heat. So we've cooked the sausages on this side of the griddle previously, and we're also going to fry the tomatoes in the fat of the sausages. So once you put them on the griddle, give them about 3 to 4 minutes on each side to brown up. Once they're done, you can take them off the griddle and season with a bit of salt and pepper. If you really want to take things up a notch, you can also lightly drizzle them with a bit of balsamic glaze just before serving. And this tangy sweetness of the balsamic glaze pairs perfectly with these savory tomatoes. Okay, so after cooking the tomatoes for about 3 to 4 minutes on each side, they're done. We can go ahead and remove them from the griddle. And now we've completed cooking our eggs, we've cooked our sausages, and now we have also cooked our tomatoes. So let's go ahead and plate our food up and dig in. Okay, so now we're done cooking our eggs, our sausages, and our tomatoes, and voila, we have a perfect breakfast plate. Okay, so remember at the start I asked you why did the egg cross the road? Well, because it heard there was something exciting going on the other side, obviously. Well, I hope you enjoyed this griddle recipe video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to stay tuned for more delicious griddle recipes. Take care.